All right, everybody, we got, tell me if I get this wrong, the Oklahoma Okie right here, Justin DeHass. He is a certified big deer killing son of a gun right out here in western Oklahoma. How you doing, bud?
Doing well.
Thanks for coming to Rack Madness today. Y'all are from out here. Your boy shoots at this program, and he's turned into a pretty good ASA shooter.
Yeah, he's done well.
Where he practices for the ASA is right sitting here, about 15 feet up in a tree stand, dropping monster deer.
Well, that's a pretty good way to put it. Yeah.
Well, tell them how to raise these kids right, and tell us all the secrets to not only self-filming hunts, but growing and managing big deer.
Well, I tell you, you're talking about big deer. I'm going to talk about does.
There you go.
If you're not taking does, you're not going to kill big deer. There's going to be some people kill big deer, but they've got to have the habitat, number one, to want to stay there. And we can't be overrun with 30 or 40 does and only 3 or 4 bucks. So our buck-to-doe ratio is pretty close to 2 does to a buck. And, you read that it needs to be even 1-to-1 is the ideal situation, but we take does. I always tell people, and nobody wants to listen, but take those does early in season. Mm-hmm. I like to make sure those fawns are old enough to live, but our regulations is October the 1st. I don't take them October 1st, but I try and take as many as we can before the rut. Okay. I don't want the bucks breeding that doe and then she getting taken out. That took up that buck's energy.
There you go.
That doe is eating that buck's feed, whatever it is, food plot, a corn pile, the neighbor's wheat, our blackjack timber who produces the acorns. You got to have something there for your bucks to eat and your does. But if you're overrun with does, it's hard to see that big buck. You got to make them get up on their feet.
Yep. So you're of the school of thought that the less does, the more they're going to have to chase during the rut to breed.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So it should not be ladies' night at your hunting spot. I've always, deer hunting for me was always real simple. See a deer, got an arrow, sharp broadhead, that's the one we're shooting. A lot of does early. And the last couple of years, I've had a good buck that I was chasing. Very fortunate. I say a good buck. He was a good buck to me. And I passed on a lot of does early on in the season. And that's hard to justify because I know conventionally that the more food there is to go around, the bigger that buck's going to grow next year. So tell people, what's the mentality from shooting does early? Because you see them come in all the time, and it's not like it's going to ruin your hunt, right. But the buck could be 20 yards behind him. So tell everybody kind of how you justify that, being a trophy whitetail hunter, but also prioritizing needing to take these slickheads out.
Well, if I've got 4 or 5 different farms I'm hunting. Sometimes you just like to go hunting, whether you're going to take anything or not. But if the wind's not right for me to go hunt that buck, I go hunt where the wind's right for me just to shoot a doe. That way I don't go overuse that area. And, the best thing we've got to help us out is game cameras. You can, whether it sends you pictures or whether you check it weekly, it gives us a pretty stinking good idea of what bucks are there because we might not see them with our own eyes. But I go out there with an intention that, okay, I'm going to kill this buck. Or I go with an intention that I'm going to harvest a doe in a different area, maybe just a quarter of a mile away because I don't want to mess up that area. And when I say mess up, I have still harvested does and taken a buck 15 minutes later, 5 minutes later. So a lot of people think, if you hear one snort, your hunt's over. I've heard them snort 50 times, and they've been out of bow range, and you still have a nice buck come in.
Yep.
And my level of buck is different than somebody else's level of buck. It's what makes each individual happy. That's the main thing. And we fill our freezers up every year. We'll take our 5 or 6 does, and we'll take a couple bucks. And that's me when I say we. Then my boy or boys. But I encourage everybody to take 3 or 4 does. Take 1 buck. If you're going to get plenty of meat off of some does. You're also going to get double that meat off of a large mature buck. So
you're not going to get the mature buck unless you shoot the does.
Correct. And we're always told that a doe will run off her yearling. She'll move it to another area. So people might not agree with this, but if you harvest that doe that has a button buck, that button buck's not going to leave your area. There's nobody to push it away.
Okay.
Okay, so you've got an extra buck right there. The bad part about having button bucks walking around is a lot of people see, if they are out there to shoot a doe, they're looking at that first one that comes out. A lot of times a button buck is the first one. I was a victim of that. If you've hunted and taken a doe, you're probably going to be a victim of it. But take that doe, let her fawn stick around in that area. You're going to have bucks move in during the rut time period. You're going to have bucks as they get mature, they find an area they like. And, sadly, we've had 4 or 5 bucks get run over this year that were nice.
Yep.
But we're always growing some, and there'll be some move in. But you got to take some of those does. I reached out. I used to have a company, and I had a secretary actually email James Kroll, Dr. Deer, about our theory of shooting that doe who has the button buck. Because maybe that'll make you keep more in your area.
Yeah, I'd never heard that they will run off a yearling to a different area. I never thought about that. But yeah, there's probably been quite a few deer that seen Mom go down at that corn pile I hunt over. It's one spot. It's 40 acres, and there's only 4 acres of trees on the back of it. So it's the old country honky tonk everybody goes to in the one horse town. So seen quite a bit of bloodshed.
Yeah.
If it was a dive bar, you'd just keep riding past it. You wouldn't stop in there for nothing. But that is an interesting theory because we start dropping does, and I've seen. I mean, when the rut comes out and we start throwing corn out and throwing baits and scents and use my what's that called, my DKM scent kit, my scrape kit. Everybody called Donovan Clary out there. He can walk you through how to kind of set some of these things up. But yeah, we'd see all kinds of little button bucks. It's like, man, I got a lot of does and button bucks. What in the world? I guess I shot all their moms and they stayed there. I have only myself to blame.
Yeah.
And now it's my obligation to feed them corn until they're 5.5 years old.
That's right. Try and let them get mature.
Yep. And how do you like to shoot a young doe or an old doe?
I like to shoot a legal doe.
Any doe.
Any legal doe.
There you go.
And preferably if it's one that I know is a chronic snorter, she goes first.
Okay.
And I've argued with people. People tell me I'm crazy, and that's fine. But, you've got all season long to kill a doe. My theory is always, why do we wait till the end? Let's take that doe. Let's let that buck have some better place to eat. Let's not take that doe before she's harvested. And I raise cattle, which it's different, but we darn sure don't let the bulls out to breed the cows and then kill the cows.
Yep.
If we're going to get rid of a cow, we do it before we turn the bulls loose. So I've got to look at that as a little bit of the concept. I wish Dr. Deer would have answered the email there years ago just to see what his perspective was on it, but didn't get an answer. I guess right now, maybe the best thing we could do is reach out to Elon. Yeah. He seems to be solving lots of problems.
I was going to say, he's definitely got his nose in a whole bunch of new corners. So while he's sorting out all the other issues with the federal government, maybe he could fix our buck-to-doe ratio.
Fix our buck-to-doe.
It doesn't take a scientist. It takes a bunch of bow hunters that like to hunt for 3.5 months. I know you're also just a little bit of a lever-action rifle enthusiast. Yeah. So if you are inclined to harvest more of your slick-headed deer, will 4570 do pretty good?
Oh, yeah. I've shot them with 4570. We've got an old family gun that's a 4082. The gun was an 1886 model, built in 1889. Taken down several with them. I've got into buying those new Henrys also. Actually, I've got a daughter-in-law who loves to buy me those Henrys for Christmas.
Oh, that's a good.
She seems to buy the exact ones I'm looking for.
Bonus kids.
She's got a really good idea.
There you go.
A really good eye for them. So I have had a blast with those lever actions. Whenever I was young, if I used to rifle hunt, I had the biggest rifle with the best scope where I could reach out and touch somebody. But I don't know, the past 4 or 5 years, everything I've taken's been inside of 30 yards. I go hunt bow stands. I take my lever action rifles without a scope. And I go have fun.
It's fun to take it back to something primitive. I always enjoyed muzzleloader hunting because it's like, man, you get one and you better reload it quick.
Yep. And you darn sure don't take one of those warning shots first.
No. I usually 15 yards and in with the muzzleloader. That's pretty safe for me.
Yep.
I was going to say, you've got a YouTube channel out there. Tell everybody what the handle is and kind of what that's about.
The Oklahoma Okie. I actually had a cousin from Texas. It used to just be my name, and my cousin from Texas just loved watching some of my gun videos. And he said, you need to call yourself the Oklahoma Okie. So that's where that come from. I've got gun videos on there. I've got videos of cattle. I've got videos of hunting, all kinds of deer hunts. The only place I went to out of state, I went to Texas and went to Alabama. And I'll be hunting in one of those other states, and they're like, we can't believe you shot a doe. Well, why not? You know, they're legal. I come down here to take something, and you're not always going to see a big buck in an area that you don't know, and you only get a chance to hunt for 2 or 3 days. Of course, spring and summer, I'll put some fishing videos on there. We'll plant some food plots throughout the year also. Just stuff like that's what you'll find on my channel. And it's always kid-friendly, but it is open to the public. Some of those kid-friendly ones, you know, kids can get on there and comment on mine. Some of them, kid-friendly video, that can't comment because of YouTube's rules and regs.
Yep. Got to play by somebody else's rules, unfortunately.
Yes.
So you've got quite a bit of experience in self-filming your hunts.
Oh yeah.
Talk about the guys out there that are new to hunting, might be new to bow hunting. What's some good tips and tricks for self-filming? What do you do and what do you not do?
I've got a camera bag that I should have brought in here, and I could have showed some. The only thing I carried in here was a GoPro, but I use a GoPro on I'll mount it somewhere on the tree stand, or in whatever stand I'm in, I'll mount it facing me. The GoPros past about 20 yards don't get very good footage. By the time you edit that video, you know, the GoPros are not intended for farther out there stuff. So I use the GoPro for up close. I've got some, I'm at a blank right now. I've got 2 different cameras that you can zoom in for up to 30 power with. Sony's what they are. One of them's a Sony 405 and one of them's a Sony 675. You can buy those online for $300 to $500 just about every day. And they're actually do great video quality, but the quality of the audio is not as good as these GoPros. So I use the audio GoPro.
Okay.
And I use the video for longer range stuff, and just like I said, we're generally inside of 30 yards anyway, but the GoPros just don't do it for that distance. Okay. So those I can zoom in. I've got some that are mounted to a tree, and they're on an arm that I can move. Of course, just about all of those cameras, just like this one here, the bottoms of them will have a 1/4 inch by 20 mount on just about every camera you've got. So I've got multiple mounts. I carry multiple cameras with me. Cold weather, your batteries are going to go quicker than warm weather. Take extra batteries. Make sure you got plenty of SD cards with you, because you never know. If there is trouble to it, I've run into it. I've filmed some of them with my phone because I run out of battery on the cameras that I had, and some of my actual harvest shots were with my cell phone. That's not intended, because cell phones don't have as big a sensor as the actual video cameras, but you got to work with what you got at the time.
I had a buddy that had his target buck inside 20 yards and couldn't get it on camera, so he didn't shoot it. Mm-hmm. And I said, we can take a lot of pictures after you run an arrow through him.
Well, the last few years, if I can't get it on video, I let it be. And some of the footage is shakier than I wanted to be. Some of it, we've got a legal hunting time. Let's say the legal time is 5:30 for sunset. So 6 o'clock, you're done. Mm-hmm. Usually about 5:45, the cameras don't pull in enough light to do a good job. I've shot a few, and then I've went home, and you could see it on your camera screen, and you got home and you put it on the TV or you put it on your computer, and you're like, oh my gosh, I just put through the time and effort and I had a blast, and that last 15 minutes, it's all dark.
Yep.
You might see it on your screen while you're out there hunting, but if you really want to get into putting them online for people to watch, and my channel's small, but it's growing. I've gotten paid for a year or better on it, and it just, the more content that I put out, the more viewers you get. Mm-hmm. But you got to have some good videos. Your audio's got to be good, and you got to be able to break the footage up with different scenes. That's why I keep a camera on me. I keep multiple cameras in the stands, so keep people's attention.
So go back in time, back in the day, back when we were young, you'd see all these hunting videos, and it's like, did they not edit out anything? I mean, I saw one lady miss a deer or go shoot, went through it and hit another deer. They tracked the first deer. Here's the deer. Here's the harvest, the kill, everything else. Never said a word about the other deer that arrow went through and stuck in the back hind leg. So as you're out there curating film, what do you look for? Like, how do you know what to put out? And, like, what do you edit out? What do you...
If somebody's just getting into it, and I wished I knew this when I started, okay, because my cameras are not high dollar, but they're good enough to get good content out. I could spend $1,000, I could spend $2,000 and still get the same picture, okay, same video.
Okay.
But then if you wanted to spend $5,000 or $10,000, it's going to get better. But if I would have known how to edit things to begin with, my videos would have taken off quicker. Because my boys, I filmed them shooting several, but I didn't know at the time how to even cut 10 seconds out of the middle of it. People don't like looking at the same screen unless they're engaged in the conversation for over about 7 to 10 seconds at a time. So if you can blend that and go to something else, it keeps somebody's attention. And if you watch TV, we all do, TV changes about every 3 to 5 seconds. They're always on a different screen, a different camera angle, so you've got to do that with your videos too, unless you've just got nonstop action. Carter, he took this buck. He's walking over this way. Can we get him in here? Yeah, so this was Carter's first archery buck this year. Well, his first compound bow buck.
Bring that thing over here.
And he just had it officially scored.
Look at that. What a deer.
For Pope and Young.
Oh, my goodness.
What did it score?
They're adding it up.
They're adding it up.
Even the kickers are symmetrical. His brow tines go up so much they fold over. He's got all kind of trash on the base. That is a stud deer.
So Carter's 15, and this is 100% true.
Pull a chair up.
Last year he was watching this buck. Well, a year before he was watching this buck. We live in the country, so fortunately he can drive to his own stand a bunch of the time a mile from the house.
Yep.
He comes home all the time. Dad, I kept seeing that real nice wide buck. Should I have shot him? Well, show me the video. He'd show me the video, and I'd be like, well, Carter, if you've got to talk yourself into it, you probably aren't going to be happy with it. So he kept letting him be, and there was another nice 9-point that was more narrow. We watched both of those deer all year long, and then they shed. They go to regrowing. Carter picks this buck out. The other one is actually bigger, the other 9-point. We're figuring this is a 145-inch deer as we're watching him grow. We're thinking the other one's 150 to 155-inch.
Okay.
So Carter goes hunting first day of bow season. You want to tell it?
Come on in here.
Get on in here, youngin'.
Trade me spots.
Tell us how that first day went.
So just trying to get my first bow buck, go about an hour, and then hadn't really seen anything. Then the other buck that I was wanting to pass came out, and this one, and I think another 8-point was following him. And this one kicked off to the right and was kind of wanting to see if he'd get to a lane where I could shoot. And the other one stayed right in there at like 16 or 17 yards and kind of tried to pull back, and he just moved around too much where I couldn't get him.
But this other one's the probably 150 to 155-inch buck, and he's videoed him the whole time. He videoed this hunt here. It was a self-filmed hunt, and he's 15, so.
Golly.
But anyways, just could never get a shot off on the other one. Then come back, I think 3 days later, and go about the whole time not seeing anything. And about 15 minutes were dark. I see him and another one of our shooter 8-points walk out at like 50-ish, and figured they'd just go away. And 8-point came this way, and he followed. So
That was a mistake, was it?
That was a mistake, that's right.
Look at the height on that thing. I don't know if that camera can get that, but look how wide that deer is.
Yep.
What's that inside spread?
I think it was 21.
And hey, the thing of it is, show it just like you did.
Like, try to get it in the.
You know, it's a controversy with everybody who knows anything about the Rampolla buck. I always said, we was watching that buck. I know he's way smaller, but he's got this very similar as that Rampolla buck that was killed in '98.
Yeah.
So I had kind of nicknamed him the wide one, the Rampolla buck. And of course, I know he's nowhere near as wide, but he's got similarities.
Yeah.
And his tines grow out a little bit. But Carter arrows him at what, 15, 16 yards? And we were unable to find blood after the arrow come out. So I went out on horseback the next morning and found him.
I remember that.
And
drug him out on horseback.
and then drug him out on horseback. Let me tell you this, dragging him out on horseback is way healthier for a fat man than dragging him out by hand. And Carter had to miss a little bit of school with that. But Carter has taken probably 35, 40 deer throughout all the years.
Around in that.
A bunch of them's been with rifles, some of them's been with crossbow, a few of them's been with black powder.
And you never had to bail him out at the police station, did you?
That's right. We didn't have to bail him out at the police station. And both of my older boys, they've taken their share of good bucks as well. But this one was really special. 15 years old, self-filmed. You can watch it on my YouTube channel. You can also watch it on Carter's. Yours is just your name, isn't it? Carter doesn't really try and promote his. I think he's in that teenage stage of being a little bit embarrassed. But
Look at that deer. That is insane.
Yeah.
What county?
Major
County?
Yep. It's a
Major
sticker.
league.
It's a sticker capital of the world, Major County.
Oh yeah.
We've got sandburs that grow, and they'll stick in you an inch deep.
And there's no big deer left anywhere.
Yeah, all the big deer are gone, folks.
They're all accounted for. There's only 6 of them, and we shot every one of them.
Yep. You know, Neil, I was walking in here today, and he's probably already gone, but I brought a couple deer up. One of them was a 150-inch 9-point. One of them was a 128-inch.
You could grab one of them.
Was he a 9 or a 10-point also? Go grab that big one. Anyways, I see a guy, the biggest one. Mine.
The biggest one? You mean that's not the biggest one? Look at that deer. I'm trying to get a good camera angle on him, but, I mean, that's a stud.
Well, you know, whenever he didn't shoot the other one, I'm like, why in the world did you not? He said, well, Dad, he really didn't hold still great. And plus, you told me he was not the oldest buck of the group. So he said, I wanted to shoot the oldest buck of the group. So this was an archery deer of mine back in 2020. And it's the one that scored 128 tonight. But this is the Carter couldn't figure out which the big one was, but
golly, you can't even.
Anyways, that's pretty good
that.
mass, and this was in the late '90s. Also, once again in Major County.
I think you can tell by the.
Yeah, it's got a little. I'm going to get after my wife when we get home. She flies around all the time on a broom, but she hadn't been dusting this thing the way she needed to. Travis, you know how it is. But Carter did not shoot the biggest buck of the two.
Okay.
And I think that's the most remarkable deal. I mean, he sat here tonight and he said, well, it didn't quite stand still the best. I watched the video. It was in there for 5 minutes and 4 seconds from 11 to 17 yards. I'm like, why in the world did you not shoot him? Well, Dad, you told me he was younger than the wide one. So,
I actually think I told you that.
So he's like, the wide one's the one I was after because he's the oldest. I'm like, nobody's going to pass that deer.
Yeah.
If that deer comes over to where I'm hunting a mile away, Dad's going to shoot him. But to this day, we don't know of anybody who got him.
Okay.
And we're right in the middle of the shed season for the bucks right now. We had a nice buck get run over yesterday, and he's already shed 5-inch pedicles. Now, this right here, folks, if you can see, we're talking about 5.5 inches. I'm not sure where the paperwork is, but it's going to be 5.5 or 6 inches. And you notice the base is larger than the pedicle. So it's the buck that's laying there dead right now has a 5-inch pedicle.
Okay.
And his buck, or I say his, we call it his buck at home, the one he passed, was about one of the only ones that had mass like that. So we hope it's not him, but we don't know.
Gotta wait and find out.
That's right.
See who's here and what they start sprouting out June, July, August.
Yeah, we've seen some actually in turkey season. They're in the late April, early May. We'll see them start to have 2 to 3 inches worth of growth.
Okay.
And then in June, and they're fishing season we're fishing all summer long, but they're in the middle of July. They're pretty much there. They're going to harden up after that, but the growing part is pretty much over for our area, mid to late July.
Okay.
But we look forward to seeing their antler growth every year. And this buck, folks, 128 inches. He was a 3-year-old that was on the pass list. Now, he might have been somebody else's trophy, and at one time he would have been my trophy. But the deer come in with a broken leg. It was in late season.
Yep.
I actually text my oldest boys. I'm like, he's in here. He's got a broken leg. I don't want to shoot him. But I ended up shooting him. That was in 2020.
Yep.
So I just brought him up just because the game warden was here. And
Cause of death listed was COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was a COVID death. Yeah, he was a COVID death in 2020.
That's something that you got. If you see one of them that's banged up,
Yep.
post rut, late season,
Yep.
it changes everything you've said from May till October.
Yep.
It's like this is his year. No, he gets another year, and you
Yep.
see him come in on 3 legs or a big
Yep.
hole in him, or somebody else has run an arrow or a crossbow bolt through him.
Yep.
You got to make that call. It's not I wouldn't call it a management buck. It's just a conservationist buck.
Yeah, it was the best thing to do. And here we're talking about Carter's deer, and every parent's proud of their kids, but I kept wanting him to rifle hunt this year. And after his archery deer, he was like, Dad, I'm going to public land hunt. He's just 15, so I had to drive him everywhere. But he public land hunted after that and was in pursuit to get a mature buck. Could have taken several smaller, younger bucks, chose not to. But he put in a lot of time in public land archery. I went with him and filmed from a distance. We saw some really good bucks, and boy, just as soon as you think it can happen, public land's different than private. You get somebody come walking through there, they might have had a beagle, they might have been a duck hunter, there might have been anything, but everybody's got the right to be out there. But he put in valiant time trying to get a public land when it didn't work out, but it will in time.
It'll happen.
Yeah.
I got a lot of buddies out there that'll tell you public land hunting is it's a different beast.
Yep.
You're going to have to put the sits in. You got to put the hours and the miles in.
Yep.
So, and I do think those deer score a little better. I mean, looking at them on the wall.
Yeah, and whatever. They got your paperwork done? Let's hear it.
Says final score 137 and 3/8.
137 and 3/8 Pope and Young.
Yep.
Your first Pope and Young buck.
That's awesome.
So he would even make, here in Oklahoma, we've got Cy Curtis, Cy Curtis would be for anything other than a traditional archery or compound. So he would even make Cy Curtis, which is like rifle, crossbow, primitive, black powder. So, but it takes 125 to make Pope and Young. It takes 135 to make Cy Curtis, and then 170 for Boone and Crockett.
God, that's a step up. People say he was 174 or 175, and it's like, I don't know if you've ever seen a 170. I don't know if you've ever seen a 160 inch, but they're like that.
Yep.
Got to carry that mass up. Got to carry the length, and that deer right there is the thing that saved it was the beams. That one sitting here on the table. I mean, he didn't have mass, he didn't have width, but he had tines and he had beams. It's like you can carry it into the. I mean, 39. I thought he was 41 when we first scored him. That'll carry. I mean, he needed at least a year, but he wasn't going to get it from me.
Well, once again, shoot what makes a guy happy.
Oh, yeah.
And I say that, but in all honesty, I see guys every year that some of them are neighbors, and you hear them shoot, and you talk to them, congratulate them. They shot a 6-point, they shot an 8-point, and it's a yearling buck. And they say, we don't know why his antlers weren't any bigger. You know, we see you shoot big bucks, but they legitimately think that's a mature deer. It's not a mature deer. But once a person learns it and realizes it, it's a different game for them. And then I'm always kind of like, well, in my mind, I'm thinking, why didn't they just shoot a doe? But it's their tag. And then I usually ask them, did you see any does? Oh, yeah, we saw 14 does, and then this buck come along. And he's just but it's to each their own also.
Yep.
I'm not buying their tag. They're not buying mine.
Yeah. I ain't found one yet that I've managed to fit the antlers in a crock pot for a roast. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Y'all go shoot your does. I mean, you got guys out here that are telling you there's 140 and 50 and 60 inch deer running around, and they're telling you how to get those deer, and all you got to do is kill deer to get it. Okay. I mean, what other problem can you solve? I got flat tire. How you gonna do that? Get more flat tires and fix it? No. How do you kill bigger deer? Kill more does. Get better at it. You know, don't waste the good shot on them, but you know, put a lethal one on there.
Yeah.
Speaking of practicing, you had a good year at the ASA. I saw this kid come out. First time I got to shoot with him was at Choctaw Archery. Shout out to my buddy Haskell there. And I was like, where'd this kid come from? He was up there shooting in the adult known 45 class. And they're like, you never heard of that kid before, but he's dropped monster deer. And tell everybody that might not have ever shot tournament archery, like as a bow hunter, what's it like to shoot the ASA?
It's pretty fun. A lot of competition, meet a lot of pretty cool guys. Met Neil, of course.
A lot of cool guys and Neil. The kids like to pick on me more than anybody ever has in my life. I don't know where they got that, but we like having the kids come out, and I mean, they're hanging with adults. That's the thing. It's like you don't understand. This kid's killed bigger deer than a lot of grown men will ever see, but during the summer, he's also shooting in an adult class with all the same grown men. So it gives you that opportunity to get what you want out of the sport. If you want to go, if you're a 13-year-old kid and you want to go compete with the 13-year-olds, there's a class for you. But if you've been around the block a time or two and you've seen monster deer hit the dirt with a bow, foam deers, that ain't really much of a challenge. So Carter is an example of somebody who's experienced as an archer, he's experienced as a bow hunter, and he comes to our qualifiers and state championships and stuff like that. He's competing against the grown men because that's what he wants competition-wise. So I always want to point that out when we get a chance to talk to some of these kids that are, you know, tournament archers, they're bow hunters, they shoot right here at the Autry Tech Center. They're all out there, and they're a resource that you guys can use. So, I mean, you might not have a lot of friends that can keep up with you with a bow, but you'd be great to say, hey, man, I know Carter, he probably showed me a thing or two.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I got over there, and, man, they sure did give me a crash course in what not to do in the deer hunting woods. So I always want to give people a chance, you know, tell them all the secrets to it. Tell them what's the key to performing with your bow under pressure. What's the secret, man?
A lot of practice, but nothing really can prepare you for whenever a buck actually steps out. I mean,
it all goes out the window, doesn't it? He made that shot 150,000 times in the backyard all summer, and here he is at 17 yards.
Yeah. I've sat right there with him, you know, throughout the years. First deer he shot, he was sitting on my lap, 6 years old, you know. So I've sat there with him for years, and honestly, I probably filmed close to a third, maybe half of your hunts. And I get more nervous than he does. Of course, I'm a dad. I'm excited and everything for him, but he's taken a bunch throughout the years. And I've got some videos. You're probably 7 or 8 years old, and it's funny. He shoots a nice 130-inch buck with rifle, and then he just turns to me, and he hands me the empty. And I'm like, give me 5, buddy. But he stayed pretty calm and cool in that moment. But he's been raised around deer. He's been exposed to a lot, probably seen more than most adults do.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Most nervous I've been has been the one someone loaded the wrong ammo on.
Oh, yeah. We had a little bitty buck, had 19 points. And once again, this 19-point buck, Carter kept seeing him the year before. We probably saw him a dozen times. And Carter, I'm sitting there and I'm like, it's your deer, you do what you want. And Carter's like, that's a pretty nice one. Probably Dad, do you think he's a 135-inch deer? I think he probably is. Dad, I think he looks young. And I'm like, yep, he is. Well, should I shoot him? If you want to shoot him, Dad, I think I'll let him be till next year. Well, he was a mainframe 10, and the next year he is split everywhere. He's got 19 points. And we take black powder guns. Carter is wanting to take his brother's gun, which is not loaded. My gun's loaded. They both take different ammo. They both take different loads of black powder. I'm in a hurry after school to get him out there. We load his brother's gun with different types of ammo, different loads of black powder, and it never went through my mind. Now, he'd shot a coyote like at 132 yards with my black powder gun just days before. he sells it over this big buck's back. A few days later, the big buck gets a few points broke off. He's like, you know what, Dad? He stayed around last year. We'll just let him regrow for next year. 3 miles, and about 2 weeks later, another neighbor killed him. So that happens. But back to the whole point of that story is he passed that buck, and he really got big, really got big. But sometimes just that one more year does it all.
And you got to be happy if the neighbor kills him. You know,
we cried for weeks.
As much as it hurts your soul, you got to pick your bow. You got to pick your bow hunters up.
Yep.
You know, you got to be happy for him. It could have been a 6-year-old kid or a 76-year-old man.
Yep.
But he's a stud. He hit the dirt. If it was a clean kill,
Yep.
more power to you.
Yep, that is correct. That is correct.
hard.
And some of the times we shoot the neighbor's deer. We don't know it, but I mean, there was one in here tonight that looked like a twin to one I've got on the wall at home. And I told the guy, I said, I've got one that's just like that. Either scored 143 or 144. I didn't know what deer it was when I shot it.
That's what I did.
It just showed up, and I shot it, and it turns out it's one that we didn't know about, but the neighbors a couple miles away did. So it comes and goes. But that guy got his score tonight, and it was 144 inches.
There you
Both
go.
of them are 11 pointers, and I mean, they are spot on the same deer. Turns out he hunts 2 miles from us.
Genetics.
Yeah,
Genetics.
Yep.
You get a lot more done talking to your neighbors. Hey, you ever want to see this deer? Well, you're scared of letting him know that deer's there. But and the other time, man, you won't lay awake at night knowing your neighbor popped him.
Yep.
So.
That has been probably people look at my YouTube and my social media and they think, why would he let anybody know what type of deer he's got? In all honesty, it has helped me out. My neighbors started seeing those videos, and they started calling me or texting me while they were hunting. We just saw that buck you called so-and-so. Really? Send me a picture. So they send me a picture. It's the same buck. They took it with their cell phone out of the stand. And I said, are you going to shoot it? No, we let it go because we saw on your video you let it go.
Yeah.
Well, then they know if you're letting it go, they can let it go, and that buck might be 10 to 15 inches bigger the next year.
There you go.
So it actually helps to talk with your neighbors. Some of them aren't going to listen. Some of them are still going to do their deal. And I'm talking about some of those neighbors not listening. Maybe I'm the guy who doesn't listen.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, everybody's got a different philosophy with it.
Yep.
Yeah.
You got to maximize potential any way you can, and
Yep.
that's usually working together. You know,
Yep.
I don't want if I see a 210 inch. Probably not gonna tell too many people till I got him dead. But if it's 125 inch and you think he needs a year, and you'll put that out there, well, it shows everybody that it's okay to give him a year. Let him get to 135, 145, 100. Like if you
Yep.
want to shoot a really truly 5.5-year-old, 6.5-year-old deer,
Yep.
he's gonna get seen before. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
that's
not,
right.
He's not just a ghost in the
Yep.
night, and some of them are. They're nocturnal, and you never see them in daylight. And more power to them, but it really gets down to what is by your definition, what is that mature trophy deer? So,
And what I've found out about nocturnal, okay? That nocturnal buck that we only get at 2 in the morning, I've got enough farms at 6 o'clock in the evening, he's on his feet 1.5 miles away.
yeah.
And he's over here at 2 in the morning. So if we're only limited to one farm, we probably don't know that. We might only be able to get him when that doe's in heat, and but that nocturnal part, they're on their feet somewhere in the daylight. We just don't know where.
Yep.
But because of having multiple farms, we're able to figure a little bit of that out.
Oh, yeah. You
Yeah.
piece it together.
Yeah, put 'em together.
He's sleeping on mine, but somewhere he's in the middle of daylight.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Well, guys, I appreciate you sitting down with
Yeah.
us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you for the education. You stay off my deer lease. I've seen what you do to them. But I appreciate you guys. If y'all want to come meet up, Autry Tech Center, Oklahoma ASA, you can hang out with people that we want to make you a better hunter. We want to make you better at what you're doing, and we want to learn from you. If you got a new trick that's like, hey, I found a great way to rig this up, come share it with them. It's like we all get better together. These are two guys. Oklahoma Okie for the YouTube channel. You're on
Yes, sir.
Facebook and Instagram as well.
Really not Instagram.
Not Instagram.
Facebook, yep.
Facebook and YouTube. Y'all
Yep.
give them a follow, give them a like, give them a share, and tune in next year to see which one of them's going to kill the bigger deer. I don't know how it's going to. Somebody's got to come out on top, but I don't know who it's going to be.
Hey, thanks for having us.
No problem.